"Yes, Mom, I am serious about marrying Scarlett," he replied firmly. "I feel that she is the one I want to spend the rest of my life with. My feelings for her are genuine, and I cannot imagine my life without her." Luna looked at her son with mixed feelings. Her love for Dylan wrestled with concern and fear for his future. She understood that sometimes her concerns might mask her true care for her son. "I understand, son," she finally spoke. "And I want you to be happy. I have to admit, Scarlett caught me off guard. I wasn't prepared for how seriously you take our relationship." Dylan smiled slightly, feeling relief and a release of tension. "Thank you, Moms. This means a lot to me." The moon nodded slowly. "I understand. Try to make sure that you and Scarlett are happy. And remember, I'm always here to help you if you need it." They hugged, and Dylan felt that this conversation brought some clarity and understanding between him and his mother. "Yes, Mom, I'm seriously planning to get married," declared Dylan. "Well, okay. Ultimately, I have to trust your choice." "Yes, and in this case, I'll soon have grandchildren, won't I?" said the mother, trying to find positive aspects in the situation. "We haven't thought about that. Maybe they'll come." Dylan was still upset with his mother, although he felt she was ready to reconcile. "I'll apologize to Scarlett right away. She will soon become a member of our family, my future daughter-in-law. Let's file the papers at the registry office, and this weekend, let's invite her over to discuss wedding preparations," stated the woman. Dylan was taken aback. His mother's sudden agreement to the marriage somewhat puzzled him. Such swift consent was unusual for Luna, who had always possessed a strong character and the ability to stand her ground. However, Dylan was relieved that she had at least come to terms with his decision. "Are you really not against our marriage?" Dylan asked, incredulously. "If you love Scarlett, I'm not against it. Your happiness is what matters most to me, honey," his mother replied, approaching and embracing him. Struggling with the thought that her son would create his own family, Luna realized that refusing to reconcile with this idea might result in losing him. That was unacceptable to her. "Thank you, Mom," Dylan said gratefully. "We're planning to live together with Scarlett. So, this weekend, we'll come to visit together." "That condition doesn't suit me at all," objected his mother. "Firstly, there are rules of decency. The groom and bride don't live together before the wedding. Secondly, you have your own house where you can take your young wife. It's better to live separately for now. That's what I insist on. Believe me, it will be better." Her voice carried a steely determination. Dylan paused for a moment, then said, "You're probably right. Agreed. I'll wait for you at home in the evening. But for now, go to work." Walking through the corridors of the publishing house, Dylan still couldn't believe that his mother had given in and agreed to accept Scarlett. He looked forward to the moment he could tell her about it in the evening. Why wait until tonight? He thought. "Scarlett, do you have your passport with you?" Dylan asked the girl over the phone. "Yes, what's going on?" she inquired. "Let's meet in the city center by the fountain during the lunch break. Is that okay?" Dylan proposed. "Fine, but what's going on?" "You'll find out when I get there," Scarlett replied, after which Dylan hung up. He pondered for a moment and then picked up his smartphone again to call the flower delivery service. "I can't just go with Scarlett without a bouquet," Dylan thought. 2 months later, Dylan and Scarlett became spouses. The young couple experienced sincere happiness, and Luna, to maintain her reputation in front of the guests, agreed to the wedding. Over 50 people attended the celebration, mainly colleagues from the publishing house, business partners, and friends. Harper and Liam were also on the guest list, along with a few close friends of Dylan. The ceremony took place at a restaurant. Scarlett looked stunning in her snow-white dress, and Dylan, in his blue suit with a boutonniere of small white roses, looked smart and mature. Watching her son, Luna occasionally wiped away tears after the wedding. The young couple settled into the apartment belonging to the groom and his mother. After lengthy debates, it was decided that they would live together with Luna for the time being. The apartment was spacious enough to accommodate everyone. Scarlett tried to help Luna with the household chores. She wasn't very confident in cooking since she hadn't been taught in her childhood, but she acquired a recipe book and tried to follow its instructions. Her mother-in-law constantly praised her for her decency and cleanliness, as the bride genuinely cared about cleanliness and order throughout the apartment. Immediately after the wedding, a tradition was established in the family of having joint Sunday dinners. On other days, the young couple could eat outside or later without waiting for Luna, but on Sundays at 5 p.m., they always sat down at the table. Scarlett mostly took charge of preparing dinner, but Luna often joined her. Sometimes, the mother-in-law and the bride cooked together in the kitchen. Once, when Dylan wasn't home, he dashed to the store while Scarlett was cutting vegetables, and his mother was reading a magazine. "Could you please take the pot off the stove?" asked the bride. The woman got up, took the pot in her hands, and suddenly seemed dizzy. She fell to the floor, overturning a 3-liter pot of boiling broth onto herself. "Oh my God!" cried Scarlett and instantly rushed to her husband's mother. Luna was yelling loudly, then her cries turned into quiet sobbing. The girl grabbed her phone and dialed emergency services as soon as Dylan approached the entrance. Luna was already being prepared to be loaded onto a stretcher into the ambulance, and Scarlett was crying beside her. "What happened? What's wrong with Mom?" he asked. "She accidentally spilled a pot of broth on herself. It was very hot," Scarlett said, handing her husband a bag. "Go home. I'll go with her." Dylan returned home late in the evening, and Scarlett couldn't calm down. She blamed herself for asking Luna to remove the pot from the stove when she could have done it herself. "Mom is very distressed," remarked Scarlett, addressing her husband. "She got a serious burn." "She'll be in the hospital," replied Dylan. "How did this happen?" "I was cutting vegetables, and she was reading a magazine. I asked her to take the pot off the stove. She got up, but then started swaying and fell. Maybe she felt unwell and blames herself," explained Scarlett. "Don't blame yourself, you're not at fault, Mom. Do you think I don't know about this? She's had blood pressure issues for a while. Age doesn't make anyone immune to illnesses. Everything will be fine, don't worry," reassured Dylan. Luna spent an entire month in the hospital. Dylan had to temporarily take over the management of the publishing house. Scarlett requested leave from work and took care of her mother-in-law. She hardly left her side. She was in the hospital room from morning till evening, feeding, helping change clothes, talking to Luna, and reading manuscripts that Dylan passed on. During this time, the bride and mother-in-law became very close. After being discharged from the hospital, they returned home to their family. During dinner, Luna, with a serious expression, said, "My children, I've had time to think everything through. Dylan, since you're doing an excellent job as director, stay in that position. As for me, I'll take some time off." "Mom, are you sure? Don't rush." "I have another proposal," Dylan interjected. "I bought a plot of land in the city limits a while ago. It's time for us to move out of this 3-bedroom apartment, which, I hope, will soon become too small for us. After all, you're planning to gift me grandchildren. So, son, let's start building a house. I think we can do it in 2-3 years, Luna responded. "Now, this is a turn of events," exclaimed Scarlett in surprise. "That's great, of course, but I also had thoughts about this," Dylan addressed his wife and mother. "I've got some savings, and I thought maybe Scarlett shouldn't work for others anymore. Maybe she should have her own beauty salon. Small, but hers. What do you think about that, Mom?" Scarlett looked back and forth between her husband and mother-in-law in surprise. Everything said at the table this evening was unexpected for her. She couldn't even imagine herself as a salon owner. "Great idea," smiled Luna. "Let her try herself in business, and you help her." I don't even know what to say," exclaimed Scarlett happily. "That's so much work. I'll need to find a place, buy equipment, hire staff." "You'll do great." Dylan embraced her and kissed her on the cheek. "You're brilliant." "Well done indeed," supported Luna. A blessing came out of misfortune. 8 years passed. The family moved into a large 2-story house with their own plot of land. Luna enjoyed tending to flowers, growing roses, asters, peonies, and zinnias. Dylan successfully managed the publishing house, bringing in a stable income. Scarlett became a successful businesswoman. Her salon gained popularity, and clients spoke highly of the professional staff working in her beauty salon. Everything seemed perfect, except for one thing: Scarlett couldn't get pregnant. Scarlett and Dylan underwent a series of tests, had 3 IVF procedures, but to no avail. Scarlett had never shared with her husband about a traumatic experience she had many years ago, a miscarriage. She tried to hide this unpleasant event from him, but inside she felt guilty for not being able to give her husband an heir. The absence of children weighed heavily on their family. Dylan was preparing to celebrate the 15th anniversary of the publishing house. It was announced that the corporate party would take place at a restaurant, with all employees, regular clients, and partners invited. Everyone was in high spirits. Dylan was giving the final instructions to Eva, who stood before him with a notepad, jotting down all his directives. And finally, "Eva, don't forget to oversee the seating arrangements for each guest. It's important that everyone can quickly find their seats. Do you understand? Asked Dylan. Yes, Dylan, mumbled Eva, smoothing her hair. She was still trying to make an impression on the attractive director. Dylan fell silent, scrutinizing her intently. Her attire looked excessively provocative. Eva, have you considered dressing more conservatively for work? The man asked. And don't you appreciate fashion, sir? Eva sharply retorted. In my opinion, I look very stylish and modern. I'd rather call it vulgarity, Dylan interrupted her. That's enough, go. The previous evening, Dylan's mother had once again begun a conversation about how they couldn't seem to give her grandchildren, which had brought Scarlett to tears. The man was so worn out by the constant conflicts between his mother and his wife that at times he did not want to return home. Recalling his wife's emotional display from the previous day, Dylan sighed heavily. Of course, he also wanted to have a son. But his feelings for Scarlett had not diminished over all these years, and he was not going to part with her just because there was no child in their family. His mother, however, continued to hint that it would be better if Dylan divorced. She tirelessly repeated that time was relentlessly passing, that she was getting older, and soon she wouldn't be able to dote on a grandchild, if one ever appeared. Trying to push away the sad thoughts, Dylan immersed himself in work. Scarlett refused to attend the corporate party organized for the 15th anniversary of the publishing house, citing feeling unwell. She spent the entire night in tears again, only managing to fall asleep thanks to the pills she took. Okay, darling, I'll try not to stay long and come back as soon as possible. Dylan bid farewell, leaving for the celebration. He kissed his wife and left the house. Scarlett sadly watched as the car drove away through the gates. The woman felt that she had been in a terrible state for a long time. Even 2 weeks spent with her husband at the seaside this summer couldn't fully ease her mental state. The idea of going to a restaurant, where guests are having fun and rejoicing, while she feels a crushing heaviness inside, seemed unbearable. Her mother-in-law did not miss the chance to add fuel to the fire, telling her husband that he should leave his infertile wife, and sometimes expressing her discontent directly, which brought Scarlett to tears. The marriage was falling apart at the seams, and she didn't know what to do. The restaurant was noisy and cheerful, guests were dancing, occasionally interrupted by congratulations and gift-giving. The publishing house's anniversary went great, but Dylan somehow overindulged. He downed one shot after another, barely ate, and by the end of the evening, he was on the edge. Thank you very much for the congratulations. I appreciate all of you, he exclaimed. Dylan's behavior, well known throughout the city, could damage the publishing house's reputation. But he didn't care. At one point, he even decided to enter a dance competition, surprising some guests and entertaining others. One of the attendees even pulled out a smartphone to capture the director's unusual behavior. Observing this, the secretary Eva realized that the situation was about to spiral out of control. She knew Dylan well enough to assume that he would regret his actions the next day. But something needed to be done now to prevent further negative consequences. To prevent possible embarrassing behavior from Dylan in front of the partners, who had already begun to look at him disapprovingly, Eva took matters into her own hands. Dylan, let me dance with you, she said, approaching the director and embracing him around the waist, leading him towards the exit. Where are you taking me? I'm having fun here, protested Dylan. We'll continue to have fun, just outside in the fresh air, Eva persuaded him, insistently guiding him towards the exit. She quickly hailed the first available taxi and ushered the exhausted director into it. She sat in the front seat, making room for Dylan, and promptly informed the driver of their destination. Where are we heading? Murmured Dylan, trying to focus. To a secluded place, where secrets will remain unknown. Dylan, the secretary gently responded. Is this really necessary? Inquired the director, barely lifting his head from Eva's lap. It seemed he was on the verge of falling asleep right in the car. Hey, don't sleep. We're almost there, Eva reminded him. The front desk, who, somewhat groggily, let them in. In her room, Eva retrieved a half-empty bottle of brandy from the cabinet and poured the contents into glasses. You need to relax a bit, she said, offering the glass to the man. Come on, like this, gradually. After a small amount was consumed, Dylan began to come to his senses. When he asked where they were, Eva affectionately wrapped her arms around the man's neck, whispering, in a mysterious place, "You'll like it here. You have no idea how much." She kissed him. Under the influence of alcohol, Dylan was only vaguely aware of what was happening, but he did not lose control. Eventually, Eva got what she wanted and dragged the director off to her bed. The next morning, Dylan had a terrible headache. With horror, he realized that he was in a small room, in a strange bed, next to his secretary, who was still stirring slightly. He got up, found his clothes, hastily dressed, and quickly left. Upon returning home, Scarlett was stunned. She had never before seen her beloved husband in such a wretched state. "You overdid it. You shouldn't have come back in this state," she said, listening to his story about how he had fallen asleep on the couch in his office at the publishing house. "Go take a shower and lie down, rest. You need to wake up," Scarlett advised him. "It's awful, you smell so bad. Why did you drink so much? Forgive me, darling, I don't know what got into me," Dylan apologized. His mother and wife tried not to dwell on the incident. At the same time, Eva reminded the director at every opportunity of the good times they had together. She continued to approach him at work, which began to irritate Dylan, although he felt guilty. He was angry with himself, not Eva. One day, the secretary entered the office without invitation, looking concerned. "What's happened?" Dylan asked. "I'm pregnant." Eva lowered her head. Dylan rose from his desk, approached the secretary, and looked into her eyes. "You're not joking, this isn't a mistake." "No, what should I do now?" Eva cried. "Calm down. What to do in this situation? At the very least, provide you with support. In the worst case, get married. After all, it's your child. But the latter is out of the question. And I will help with the finances," said Dylan. "I also need a place to live. I can't raise a child in a dormitory," Eva whined. "I'll take care of it. Please leave." Dylan dismissed her from the office. He sat down in the chair and rested his head in his hands. He will have a child, long awaited. But it's not with his wife, and the absence of his wife is a fact that pleased and worried him at the same time. For the baby, Dylan quickly resolved the housing issue. He accommodated Eva and her future child in Scarlett's apartment, which still remained vacant. Dylan announced that he had rented out the property to his employee, who had encountered temporary difficulties. 2 more years had passed, and on that night when Scarlett accidentally became a witness to her husband's conversation with his mother, she could no longer sleep. She and Dylan grew distant from each other and stopped making attempts to reconcile. They lived as friends, as acquaintances, and sometimes as neighbors. Dylan stayed late at work, not deeming it necessary to explain the reasons. Scarlett went to work at the salon as if on autopilot until an upheaval occurred. Dylan had another family. Scarlett's husband had a child on the side, a baby she couldn't bear. In the morning, Scarlett drank her coffee and headed to the salon. Thoughts about her beloved husband's double life haunted her. She walked, barely seeing anything, and suddenly the screech of car tires brought her out of her daze right at the pedestrian crossing. A huge black Jeep hit a girl with a stroller. Scarlett rushed to the injured girl, while the driver of the Jeep put the car in reverse and vanished from sight literally in the blink of an eye. "Girl, are you alive?" Scarlett leaned over the young mother, who had already started to get up from the asphalt. A crowd began to gather around. Someone was shouting, "Call an ambulance quickly." Next to the injured girl's head, a pool of blood was slowly spreading on the asphalt. Hearing the baby crying, Scarlett rushed to lift the overturned stroller. The boy in a blue suit burst into tears. The woman unfastened the straps on the stroller and took the child in her arms. SHH, little one," Scarlett whispered, trying to comfort the little boy. "Everything's okay, it's all behind us now. Don't cry." She rocked him, trying to console him and holding him close. At that moment, the sound of an ambulance approached, and the crowd of people made way, allowing the medics access to the girl lying on the asphalt. They placed the injured girl on a stretcher and carefully loaded her into the ambulance. The police arrived almost simultaneously. "Is she alive?" asked the police officer to the doctor. "For now, yes, but there are concerns." "Not sure if we'll make it," replied the doctor, pointing to the phone lying nearby. "All right, bring it here. We need to call her relatives. We have witnesses," shouted the policeman to the crowd. "I am a witness," said Scarlett, still holding the baby in her arms. "Come with me," said the officer, leading her aside. "Is this your child?" he asked. "No, what? This is hers, that girl's. She had the stroller. A car ran the intersection and hit her." "Did anyone remember the car's number?" Scarlett answered haltingly. "No, didn't remember. Black, big, that's all," Scarlett reported. "Okay, sign a statement. We need to go to the hospital, get information from the doctors." "Can I come with you?" Scarlett asked. "Her child is here with me." The policeman carefully looked at Scarlett with the child. Get in the car, he said, simultaneously scrolling through the contacts on the injured woman's phone and calling numbers he assumed belonged to her close relatives. On the way to the hospital, the baby calmed down and fell asleep in Scarlett's arms. She entered the emergency room and sat down on a chair. Wait here, the father will arrive soon. I got through to him, said the policeman. If you need anything, water or anything else, ask the nurses. I'll inform them. What about the boy's mother? Asked Scarlett. She's undergoing surgery now, nothing's known yet. Let's wait, replied the policeman, walking away and leaving Scarlett alone with the baby. She couldn't take her eyes off the baby. He was about a year old, give or take. Scarlett didn't dwell on that detail. The baby slept peacefully, occasionally making sounds and smiling faintly. The woman's heart squeezed at the thought of what would happen to his mother, she pondered. Lost in thought, she didn't even notice the agitated man who rushed in through the door. Are you okay? Scarlett looked up and saw Dylan before her. The man was extremely distressed, breathing heavily. Scarlett, what are you doing here? Asked Dylan, surprised to see his wife holding his son. You've surprised me even more, replied Scarlett. I got a call saying Ava was in an accident with a child. Who's Ava? Scarlett didn't understand anything. Dylan sighed deeply and sat next to his wife. He looked at his son, stroking his head. Scarlett, this is my son, Andrew, Dylan said quietly. The word son. She understood everything but somehow felt no emotions. Yes, it turned out that way. He's very handsome, takes after you, smiled Scarlett. Dylan looked at his wife in surprise as she admired his child born from another woman. His wife didn't create a scene, didn't ask questions, she simply embraced his son, who slept peacefully, smiling in his dreams. I'll explain everything to you, Dylan wanted to say. No need. What matters is he's alive. What matters is the baby is unharmed. Scarlett put a finger to her lips. You'll wake him. He has been through so much already. Okay, I'll stay silent. Dylan fell silent for a moment. Then he asked, what about Ava? The operation, not known yet. Nothing, Scarlett whispered. At the end of the corridor, a doctor appeared, silently approaching them. Are you the husband? The doctor asked. Dylan glanced at Scarlett, then at the doctor, appearing bewildered. No, I'm the child's father, the man said uncertainly. I see. I'm very sorry. We did everything we could. She passed away. Stay strong. The doctor turned and walked away. Scarlett and Dylan remained silent. The baby in her arms stirred as if sensing that his mother was no longer there.